Okay, the mission for today, since the weather is halfway decent, is to remove the old radiator and install the new one. And the reason I'm doing this, I have the old school copper and brass radiator in here, which does not have a provision for a transmission cooler. Now, last summer I went ahead and plumbed one up using a transmission cooler from a Cummins diesel that's a oil and water cooler, much like what's built into a radiator. And that's hidden down here underneath the step on the front. However, I'd much rather go ahead and go with something that's a little bit more modern, a little bit easier to work with. And of course, I'm gonna have to go ahead and take that Jeep fan out of there anyway. I just put that on for fiddling around the yard in the long run. I'm going to go ahead and put the Ford Taurus 2-speed fan in. That'll go ahead and actually cool the motor. This just kind of keeps things cool-ish while I'm working on it in the yard. Alright, so last year the department I worked for ordered up a bunch of new chairs, and they came with this little angle iron frame, I guess kind of like a shipping pallet to go ahead and strap the chairs down to in stacks. And the city was nice enough to go ahead and throw all these little frames away, so I went ahead and kept them. It's just some really light 16 gauge angle iron, but I'm going to go ahead and use the reciprocating saw, cut a couple pieces off, and make some clamps for my radiator hoses so I don't drain the entire cooling system before I go ahead and take the radiator out. Okay, now I've got both radiator hoses clamped top and bottom to keep the coolant that's in the engine block. That way the only thing I've got to drain is the radiator itself. I also had to go ahead and pull the top of the core support between the grill and the core support to get to the bolts that hold my external transmission cooler in place, so I can go ahead and remove the radiator since it shares the same hardware. And should be just a couple minutes. I'll go ahead and get the sucker drained. Got my drain pan down below. Get it drained out, and I can go ahead and remove the radiator and get ready to put the new one in. Okay, well, it went sort of smooth. Wasn't an exact fit, not through any fault of the manufacturer of the radiator, but because this is a 57 Chevrolet on a 94 Dodge half-ton chassis, I had to go ahead and raise the radiator up about 2 inches just to give myself a little bit of clearance between the bottom of the tank and the power steering hardline. With the stock radiator it wasn't an issue, but this one, the tank's a little bit bigger. There's some ugliness going on with the lower radiator hose. I'm going to have to find a better one to fit, again because I raised the radiator up. And I also had to go ahead and notch the lower valance panel to go ahead and clear the petcock on this radiator. Other than that, it's in. It should work just fine. It'll definitely go ahead and clear everything that's under the hood. It's just a matter of going ahead and addressing a few minor issues, and it'll be good to go. So, and of course I'm going to have to make transmission lines for it, and then plumb them in so I can run the transmission cooler that's built into the radiator with the external cooler right here, and I can get rid of the Cummins cooler down at the bottom because it's not going to be necessary. And I figured that the engine was actually heating it up rather than cooling it off, coming off of the heater hose lines. Alright, for what it's worth, like I said, the radiator's back in the truck. I still have a little bit of work to do. I've only got 2 bolts holding it in at the top. The lower bolts are not installed yet because I'm going to have to re-drill those holes. It'd be a whole lot easier to go ahead and drill it to fit on the factory core support. In order to go ahead and do that, I'm going to need to pull the grill out, which is going to be a little bit of work to do. Probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes to go ahead and take the grill out and do all that. And it's starting to get dark, it's starting to get cool, and I really don't feel like messing with it today. So perhaps tomorrow after work I'll go ahead and do that, pull the grill out and finish drilling all the holes. Like I said, I've still got to go ahead and do the lower radiator hose, and I guess at that point I'll go ahead and put all fresh coolant in it, but for the time being it's put together enough I can at least move it under its own power around the yard. So calling it done for the day. Hurrah. What do you think, Roxy? Calling it good? Let's call it good.